Okay, shalom, everybody. We are live. Yeah, we're live. We're recording. So far, we've covered the fruit of the spirit of long suffering or patience, which was Eric Af, if I remember correctly. Gentleness, which was actually chesed, merciful kindness. Goodness, which was actually sadiq. And then the last one, just before this video, was meekness or anava, which was what Moses was known for. This video is the fifth fruit of the Spirit. We're not going in the order of what it says in Galatians, just going through it in a different manner because love, joy, peace, those are easy to explain, to be honest. Love, joy, peace, faith, those are straightforward. When it comes to long suffering, gentleness, goodness, and meekness and temperance, those kind of get muddled. Those are easily confused. So that's what I'm aiming to expand and extrapolate. I don't know if that's the right word, but to explain basically these terms based on a Hebraic perspective, because as they're translated from Greek to English, these are Hebrew concepts that are being translated into Greek, but then back into English. We're trying to reverse translate them and understand them from a Hebraic perspective. So that's what my aim is in this series. So now we're going to talk about the fruit of the Spirit of temperance in English. Now, depending on the source you're looking at, a lot of different websites will say different things. And I'm going to tell you right now, just on the get-go, I disagree with what I'm about to tell you, but I'm going to present it nonetheless. So in this website, Hebrew for Christians, they're saying that the last one, known as the last fruit of the Spirit, which is listed as temperance, some people say self-control, but Hebrew for Christians says it's modesty. It says the Hebrew word is zeniut, self-control, especially with reference to sexual affections or desire. Chastity, the Greek word enkrateia literally means inner strength, referring to mastery over one's desires and passions. However, since the strength to turn away from evil, to serve Elohim, comes from the indwelling divine presence of the Spirit, it is clear this word ultimately refers to the life of Yeshua within the heart, providing strength to serve and please Elohim. I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. Perhaps this is why this virtue is given last, as a sort of summation of the other virtues. Just as the love of Elohim is the source of all grace, so the life of Elohim is its end. So that's Hebrew for Christians for you. Okay, I disagree with that. And then Jerusalem Prayer Team, what do they say it is? Because I've been going back and forth to these sources, and what they say, Jerusalem Prayer Team, is the ninth fruit of the Spirit is modesty. So they agree that it's modesty, but they use a different word than what was used as zeniut. They use the word hatznea lechet. Hatznea lechet. And what that means is to act with modesty, walk modest. That's the first word, hatznea, and then lechet means walk in your ways. Most English versions translate this as either temperance or self-control. This is not an accurate translation, okay? Neither in modern or in ancient Hebrew. The correct meaning is synonymous to yesterday's word. So they're saying it's the same thing as meekness. Why would that be so? Why would he say the same thing twice? See, that's why I disagree with this. Attributing Hatznea Lechet to self-control may have served a legitimate social purpose at a certain time in history. But we clearly state here that this is not what the Bible meant. See the only reference to the expression in the Old Testament. Micah 6:8. Walk humbly with your Elohim. That's Micah 6:8. Let's look that up. I'm going to fact check this because I don't trust it. I don't trust everything you read on the internet or everything you hear on What is that verse again? Micah 6, 8. So I'm going to fact check this right now. See if that's what it says. Micah 6, 8. Over require of you, but to do justice and to love mercy and be ready to walk with Jehovah your Elohim. So it says, it doesn't say walk humbly, it says be ready to walk. So it doesn't say that. See, that's why I fact checked. It doesn't say that at all. So we can throw that out the window. Obviously, there's no request here to exercise self-control or temperance before Elohim. Likewise, in Titus 2, 5, the instruction is modesty, and that's what the King James translation suggests: to be discreet, chaste keepers at home. Here too, there is no request for temperance. Perhaps the habits of alcohol and drugs of latter times have affected the understanding of the fruit of the Spirit. But if we want correctness, we should adhere. It's not Hasea Lechet. No, it is not. It is not acting with modesty and walking in your ways. It is not. So I'm going to close that. And Hebrew for Christians, it is not Zeniut. It is not. Okay, you know what? It's not that they're completely wrong, because they said self-control, and that they're referring to sexual affections. But I found one, and I believe my heart is leaning to this one. It's the word in Hebrew Matsar, Matsar, and this word is translated in English as restraint, as self-control or control. And the only occurrence of this in all of Scripture, of this word Matsar, is found in Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 28. So this word itself is a rare word to find, but in practice, it can be found. I'm not going to look it up because that will take too long, but I'll just restraint, self-control. Okay, Proverbs 25:28. So I'm waiting for so to rule. It comes from atzar, to rule. So to rule yourself. Because in Genesis, where Elohim told Cain, sin, what does it say there? To you shall sin submit, and you shall rule over him. I believe that's what it says. But let me read this verse in Proverbs 25. Look at the word Matsar and see if it still says it, because sometimes it doesn't say what we normally think it would say, as we found out in the one walk humbly. It didn't even say walk humbly, it says be ready to walk with Jehovah. That's a big problem when you add words. That's why it says don't add words, don't take away words, and he who does that will be cursed, because essentially you deny Messiah. A lot of the times they remove references to the Mashiach, Yehoshua. So now Matsar in Proverbs 25:28. Let's read that. It is not good to eat much honey, but it is right to honor venerable sayings. Verse 28. As a city whose walls are broken down and which is unfortified, so is a man who does anything without counsel. Okay. So it doesn't even say that in the Masoretic or the Septuagint. So a man who does anything without counsel is like a city whose walls are broken down. So we just discovered it's not even in the Scripture. Who has no rule over his own spirit? That's not in the Scripture. That word Matsar, it's not there. Not that it is not a correct term. It is a correct term. So it's really atzar. It's really rule, to rule over one's spirit. I would have to look for a verse that is urging people, all people, to rule over themselves. And that's probably in the New Testament, to be honest. Can't recall any. Um, okay, maybe 16. Proverbs 16:32 might be the one we're looking for, because just prove that it doesn't say who can rule his own spirit. It doesn't say that. It just says a city without walls. It's like a person who. We read that earlier. I think it's Eric Half. Is better than a strong man, and he that governs his temper better than he that takes a city. So again, in the Masoretic it says rules his spirit, but in the Septuagint it says governs his temper. So either way you read it, you're governing yourself, you're ruling yourself, and specifically your temper. That's temperance. That's the fruit of the Spirit, ruling yourself. And if I could go to Genesis, where Elohim tells Cain, in fact, he was encouraging him that you can do this. Don't let sin rule over you. You will rule over it. But a lot of people, we don't read it that way anymore because of the Masoretic. If you look at, I believe it's chapter 4 of Genesis, where the Masoretic says that sin lies at the door, and I did a video on this, so I won't go through it as in depth, but if you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door, and to you shall be his desire, you shall rule over him. But the Septuagint says, have you not sinned? So you won't sin if you bring it rightly, the sacrifice, and but you did not rightly divide it. So you did bring it rightly. You brought a sacrifice which is acceptable, but because it was not rightly divided according to the Torah, according to God, Elohim's expectations of him, the way it was supposed to be done, he sinned. But regardless, he says, but be still. To you shall be his submission. Sin will submit to you, and you will rule over him. You'll have atzar over sin. But this Hebrew word, matsar, is you will rule over yourself. So yeah, you'll rule over sin, but I think sin is difficult to rule over. But as much as that's difficult, I think Matsar might be even harder. Because if you don't control yourself, then you're more susceptible to sin. Whereas if you can't rule over sin, then it's already lost cause. You won't control yourself. So that's why I am suggesting, I'm offering this, proposing that this word, self-control, temperance, is not modesty. It's not the Greek understanding of simply what the other websites were saying. It is ruling yourself. And Hebrew for Christians isn't completely wrong to self-control, because in order to have self-control, you must rule yourself, to have control over your carnality. So one last verse. Yeshua. I think this is really the verse that encapsulates this concept of self-control, of Matsar. That's the Hebraic understanding of the word Matsar, which comes from the word Atzar, which means to rule. So we'll look at two verses in the New Testament. And the first one can be found in Mark 8:36. I think they say the same thing essentially, but if we just look at them, maybe there might be a slight difference. I'm not sure. But I have to keep opening this Bible because for some reason I keep closing it. I should just keep it open to save time. So I apologize for that. Like I said, verse 4 once it loads. So again, exercise Eric F. Just kind of keep using that. It's a good way to keep it fresh in the mind. Eric F. Slow to anger. Do this. So that's why I'm doing it now. Weeks get kind of busy in some ways and distracting with a lot of different readings, different topics I'm studying. But this is something I felt it's on my heart. I really have to get this done. Otherwise, it's just going to be sitting there forever. So in Mark 8:36, what good is it to a man or woman to gain the whole world, forfeit his life? Okay, I don't think that's what the verse is. I don't think I was looking for that. Yeah, that's not it. I guess that's not the verse I was looking for. And lose his own soul. Okay, let's look at Matthew 16. Maybe that's the one. Yeah, Matthew 16. Okay. Well, that didn't work. Anyway, I'm looking for the verse that says, if you rule your own soul. But I guess it's like an online study, a live study, because I don't even know where it is. But if we find this together, it would be a nice little light bulb moment in time. What good will it do a man to gain the whole world if he forfeits his life? Okay. So again, it doesn't really prove my point. So that was not a successful search for the scripture that would support this point of view, but I think the best one was Genesis 4. And Proverbs 25:28 just was completely wrong. Didn't say that at all. I'm not saying the principle is wrong. I'm just saying it's not written there. Oh, here it is. Yeah. No. Okay. Well, anyway, I think that principle is well explained in Genesis 3. That Jehovah Elohim told Cain, "You will rule over sin," and part of that, the key to ruling over sin is ruling over yourself, ruling over your carnality. So maybe it's like I said, this word is not explicitly in the scripture, but the concept itself of ruling over yourself is something Apostle Paul talks about. He talks about beating himself, um, beating his flesh, so to speak. He's beating it to submission. Um, looking for that verse. If I can find that, I'll close the video and then go to the next one if I have the energy. Oh, here it is. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 27. So this is probably the best passage that uh, that explains control in some translations. The concept itself is Matsar. It can't be the other ones because of his. So that's the best way to explain it, that he himself has rule over his spirit. So if we look at 1 Corinthians 9:27. Okay, 9:27. It says here, I bruise my body and make it my slave, lest I, who have called others to the contest, should myself be rejected. Uh, let's just read the rest of it. It says here, I do everything for the sake of the gospel, the good news, that with them I may share in its blessings. Do you not know, on a race course, though all run, yet only one wins the prize? Run in such a way that you, the athlete, exercises self-restraint and everything. Matsar, essentially. They indeed for a crown that fades, we for one that is unfading. So this is the best verse for this concept of self-control, self-restraint, or in Hebrew, Matsar. I therefore run with no uncertain aim. I box not like a man hitting the air, like shadow boxing. No, I bruise my body and I make it my slave. I'm beating myself. I'm beating my own carnal inclinations, my own uh, fleshly desires. Because remember that the spirit and the flesh, they war against each other. This battle that we face every day and every decision will not end till we die, till we're turned into spirit beings, lest I, who have called others to the contest, should myself be rejected. So he makes it his slave because we're only a slave to what we cannot rule over. Ruled over by our own bodies, we're a slave to our body. If we are ruled over by sin, we're a slave to sin. But if we do the best thing that is right for us and what is good, if we let Jehovah Elohim rule over us, we are a slave to him. And we, by yielding to his authority, all will yield under us then, including our body, our flesh, including sin. Only then will that scripture be, to you shall sin submit, and you shall rule over him. Only with Matsar. And that's self-restraint, self-control. But this can only be achieved by bowing to his authority, by letting Jehovah rule over us. So it is kind of multifaceted in a way, but it is a fruit of the Spirit. It's an attribute of Elohim himself. I mean, Jehovah, the rule over Jehovah, no one rules over Jehovah. Jehovah's is rule over all, so nothing can rule over him. But at the same time, yes, he does have rule over himself, so to speak, because he does exercise all the fruits of the Spirit that preceded this one. They're an expression of that self-restraint that he has. The love, the joy, the peace, the ahava, shalom, and simcha's joy. And then the other ones, which I will just mention, just so I don't forget, long-suffering, which is erech af, slow to anger, kindness. His goodness is tzaddik, his righteousness, which is expressed by his Torah. Emunah, faith, which is something I haven't presented yet. Meekness, which is anava, which is humility. I won't go over that again. And then this one, self-control or temperance, but better understood in English as self-restraint, self-control. And the Hebraic understanding perspective is Matsar, and which is a root, the root of which is Atsar, which is rule, to rule. It was a long one. It's almost 30 minutes. Okay. Thank you and shalom.